got me going.
What's up guys? How you doing today? Welcome back to this YouTube channel. It's your guy Igor here, coming up at you live with another video. Calgary versus Toronto. Calgary or Toronto, what is better? In this video, that's what I'm going to answer, guys. So let's talk about it. Point number one is population. Of course, most of you are probably watching this video know that Toronto is one of those. It's a Canadian New York version of a city, and that's how they show themselves. They're trying to be a Canadian version of New York. And probably if you're watching this channel from another country, you're watching this video to find out more about Toronto, because everyone wants to move to Toronto. There are in fact three places where everyone wants to come in. It's Toronto, Vancouver and Montreal. Not many people talk about Calgary, Manitoba, Regina, in Saskatchewan, Newfoundland and other places that are also big cities in Canada. Everyone looks in Toronto, which makes it in demand and it creates more population. With more population, there is one thing that happens, is the traffic. Now, even Calgary, it takes you half an hour to get to your workplace by car. People would get upset about it. People would say, you know what, I have to do one out of two things. I have to sell my house or I have to change my job, because that just takes a lot of time in my day. In Toronto, if you are driving to your workplace in half an hour, you are lucky, because it takes hours and hours to commute to your workplace. And it's all because there is so much of population, and it's just difficult to get from one spot to another because there's so many cars and people living there. The second thing about population is competition and unemployment rate. Because everyone knows about Toronto, everyone looks at CN Tower and Harbor Bay and those beautiful places. When they look at Toronto from another countries, it's the main point for every immigrant to be. So when immigrants come to Canada and everyone else from all over Canada are trying to go to that bigger city, right? It creates more competition. You get lots of people in one place and not that many jobs. Which means is, for example, if you are used to do one job and you are used to make lots of money, there would be someone in Toronto who would do the same kind of job for less money. And that creates unemployment and that creates lots of competition. It's really difficult to get a good job in Toronto. Whereas in Calgary, yeah, there is unemployment when oil goes down, but at the same time there is less competition because not everyone is looking at Calgary and moving to Calgary, and it makes the unemployment better in Calgary. Lesser and more opportunities to get a higher paying job. Finally, real estate, guys. Of course, my friends, most of my friends live in Toronto, and I'm telling you right now, most of my friends cannot afford buying a house, a condo or anything for that matter, because the prices are so high. And new Canadian legislation with the stress test, whatever they call it, that just doesn't let banks give you enough money as your income, makes it impossible for those people to buy a place to live in. For example, in Calgary, if you want to buy a house, you can literally buy a house for 300,000 Canadian dollars, maybe 15 minutes away from downtown. If you want to get the same kind of house in Toronto, that's going to be probably a one-bedroom apartment in that area, because you would never be able to afford a $300,000 house in that distance from Toronto. So what happens is, because of the population, everyone wants to get closer to downtown. Therefore, those people who are further away are trying to get closer, and the real estate prices closer to downtown are higher. And in fact, they are reaching millions of dollars in some places, and it's really difficult to afford anything, because if you're a regular person who is working in a regular job and bank pre-approves your family combined income, your wife and yourself, for let's say $350,000, maybe $400,000, depends on how much you're making, you still cannot afford buying that $1 million house, because the bank is not going to give you enough money, which makes you rent out somebody else's property. And when you're renting out, you're not building your own assets, you're not saving up money, you're helping that person who owns a house pay off his or her loan to the bank. So you're paying somebody else, you're not saving up money, because there's so much of population, so much of competition, and everyone wants to live in Toronto. Crazy! And finally, a good point for Toronto, guys, public transport. Alright? Public transport is better in Toronto. It's cheaper in Calgary, but it's better in Toronto. I cannot say how TTC, Toronto Transit Commission, is doing their job. They're doing an excellent job. They're very good because it's easy to get from one place to another. If you are planning not to have a car in Toronto, you are totally fine. You can get wherever you want to get. In Calgary, it's really inconvenient how the public transport is working, and it's almost impossible to be here without the car. And that's why I want to say, you know, this is a plus for Toronto. Public transport is awesome there. And insurance, of course, if you talk about insurance, in Calgary insurance is cheaper than in Toronto. Because of higher population, a higher chance of you probably getting into collusion, and lots of insurance scams done in different neighborhoods. I know that my friends living in Toronto have to pay higher insurance than what I pay in Calgary. And that's a fact. It's actually more expensive to pay for housing and for insurance for your car and everything else. Oh guys, I'm trying to get more positive points for Toronto, but so far I had so many negatives. Let's say about nightlife. Nightlife in Toronto is way better, it's way off. It's of course, it's a bigger city. So if you're one of those people who love a metropolitan kind of life, a big city life, then Toronto is definitely for you. Restaurants and pubs are cheaper in Toronto. Food on the street is cheaper. There is more entertainment, more places to spend your money, which makes that city so cool. I mean, if you're a young person, I would say Toronto is probably for you. It's awesome there. At the same time, Calgary is more kind of relaxed family lifestyle. There is nightlife, but not as big as Toronto, because the city itself is smaller and a little bit colder in winter. But of course, nightlife in Toronto is way better, guys. It is a big city. Both provinces, Alberta and Ontario, have a health card and healthcare, but I found it easier to get a health card in Calgary than it was in Toronto because there was more requirements for it. For me, as coming here as an international student and a new immigrant later on, it was way easier to get my health card here in Alberta versus it was in Toronto. Of course, Toronto is a bigger and we can say more developed city, but I cannot say it's more developed because Calgary has so many parks, and in fact when they build new neighborhoods they actually plan everything in advance. There is lots of planning because there is less people and there is more time to plan, so all the infrastructure, parks and everything, it's done really well here in Calgary. But in Toronto, for example, if you're planning to travel somewhere to another country, airports are more accessible. It's cheaper to fly out of Toronto, and there are several airports around the area. There's lots of airports in that area, and it's cheaper because, for example, if you want to get an international flight from Calgary, let's say, to your home country, if you're coming from another country, most likely there would not be a direct flight from Calgary to that place. You would have to fly to Toronto and then wherever you need to go. So it's cheaper to be in a bigger city because there is a high chance of that you're going to get direct flight from Toronto, from Canada to your home place, and it's going to be way cheaper and more accessible for you. And finally, guys, weather. Everyone wants to talk about weather because Calgary has a reputation. Alberta has a reputation of having a colder weather here, right? So Toronto is warmer and Calgary is colder, right? Well, I'm going to explain a little bit on this. Calgary is drier, the humidity is less. It means your hands dry, your lips dry, you have to use a lip balm, humidifiers and this kind of stuff. But at the same time, the dry weather doesn't make it feel that cold. So in the winter, even if it's -30, even with wind chills, if it's -40, it does not feel as cold as in Toronto. It's -20. If it's -28 in Toronto, because of the humidity, it feels really, really cold because it just penetrates your clothes and everything. You just get soaked by the water in the air. You know, when you're dry, for example, if you put yourself into a cold pool of cold water, it feels way colder, right, than if you're in the cold air. Same thing here, less humidity, you feel less cold. In Toronto, more humidity, you feel more cold. And also in past 5 years, there were more ice and snowstorms in Toronto than there was in Calgary. And I would say, you know, guys, it's not that bad here in Calgary. Also, the weather conditions in Calgary, we have Chinooks here, coming up, hot wind coming up from the mountain, which melts all the snow, which means that In a matter of 1 hour, the weather can change by 30 degrees. It can be minus 20, and in one day, in 1 hour, it can be like plus 5, plus 10, where all the snow melts and all of a sudden it's so hot. Yeah, the weather here is unpredictable, and can be sunshine, and it can be snow, and it can be summer in the middle of winter, but it's not that bad because Calgary city is more prepared for this kind of weathers. In Toronto, when it's a snowstorm, the lights go off, electricity shuts down, the wires fall off, and the city is less prepared for this kind of harsh conditions. Also, they put more salt on the ground, so which makes the cars rust so much faster. If you live in Toronto and you look at the cars, there is lots of rust on the bottom. In Calgary, they don't put as much salt, they put more sand, because salt when it's more than minus 15 doesn't do any good to melt it, and that's why cars are in better shape. But at the same time, you get more broken windshields because the gravel and some small stones coming in with the sand sometimes fly into your windshield. Yeah, that's a problem, but it's better and cheaper to repair than a huge patch on your car from rust in Toronto. Of course, a good thing about Toronto is more population. You know, guys, I told you that weather is not as cold and there is more people there, which means it's more diverse city and has more festivals. So regardless of which country you're coming from, it has, for example, Ukrainian festival is there. Any kind of, there are so many festivals coming up every time, all the time, from all different cultures of the world. Everything is happening in Toronto. Big bands, you know, that are playing music coming to Toronto for sure. Smaller cities like Calgary has less things going on. Of course, yes, we have Stampede here, which is a huge event, and everyone from all over Canada and United States, people are coming to see this cowboy festival, which is huge and it's beautiful and everything. But Toronto has way more activities and on a consistent basis, because there are so many different cultures, so many different people living there, and that city is so much more attractive for performers to be there, performers to be there, guys. Alright guys, if you think that I'm crazy enough to get here just to get this view from here, make sure you hit the like button, and of course guys, I want to see your comments. Do you agree with me about Calgary and Toronto, or you don't agree? If you don't agree, make sure you comment, because I want to know what you do not agree on. If you live in Toronto, make sure you comment. If you live in Calgary, I want to know if you agree with me or you disagree, because your opinion matters. My video is just my opinion, and I want to know what you think about it. And of course guys, if you like this kind of videos, make sure you subscribe to this channel so we can see you in next video, guys. Look at this place. But there is also a castle there. Probably you've seen it on the video. And just to show you where I got, oh, it's not too high from another side, okay? This is not too high here, yeah? But on this side, it's like, oh my god. So, yeah guys, hit the like button, because I don't know if I'm getting down from here alive. Have a good one guys, we'll see you next video. I promise you, I'll be there.